Yo, what's up guys, Ghost here, welcome back to the channel. Couple of things I want to go over in today's video. First of all, it seems like JackFrags may know something about the next Battlefield game and a possible release date for it that we don't, or at least that's what the community seem to think. And secondly, I wanted to touch on the big movement debate. It seems to come around again and again over on Reddit. There's always people on two sides of the fence here. We've got the people for the movement mechanics, such as sliding or whatnot, and then we have people against them who in some ways kind of want to see Battlefield go back to the dark ages where you can't even strafe. So I just wanted to give a little bit of my input on that whole situation. As always, if you enjoy the content on the channel, make sure you're subscribed. Plenty more to come on Battlefield here into the future. We're actually getting very, very close to 60,000 subscribers, which is pretty insane to say because, I mean, I think we were at like 20k or something before 2042 released. So thank you guys ever so much for the support so far. It's been great, and hopefully we're going to grow bigger and better going into the next Battlefield game. So in JackFrags' most recent video, on his outro, which he sometimes shows and sometimes he doesn't, he actually had some random 4-digit numbers that would pop up every now and again. And these flickered by incredibly quickly, so somebody's posted here just a couple of screenshots of their TV or their monitor showing them. But there were several strings of these numbers. In fact, I think there were 7 or 8 different sets of 4-digit numbers, and so people have been trying to figure out what this means. Is this some clue to when the next Battlefield game is going to release, or probably when it's going to be revealed more like, or is it just completely meaningless? Well, I'm almost certain it's not meaningless because there's just no reason that Jack would put something like that, knowing that he is really the biggest Battlefield YouTuber. I mean, okay, maybe he's not like a dedicated Battlefield YouTuber anymore, but he's, you know, I would say probably the biggest content creator to cover the game from time to time. So he's not going to put that in his outro for no reason. But I think it's not related to Battlefield 6's reveal at all for a couple of reasons. First of all, I just don't think DICE would, like, trust the reveal of their next game to a content creator, even one as big as JackFrags. I think they would want to do this kind of thing themselves. However, what I think this could be for is part of the Phantom Prospect project for Battlefield 2042. So for anybody who's been paying attention to that over the past few weeks, that has been progressing in the Battlefield Easter egg hunting community, but they still haven't solved the entire thing. So DICE really have been feeding them little bits of information, little tips here and there to help them along their way. And Jack has always been very involved with Easter eggs, even since, you know, back in Battlefield 4, when the Phantom Prospect project was going on there, he would actually be making a lot of videos about that, covering every single step of the way. And if I remember correctly, I think he even teased some stuff in his videos then. So my guess is that this is nothing to do with Battlefield 6, guys, and it is just about Easter eggs. I could be wrong. In a way, I hope I'm wrong, because then we'd actually learn something about when the reveal is going to happen. But I would, you know, keep your expectations in check and not get too hyped up about this just yet. However, one thing you should get hyped up about is that tomorrow there is a new Battlefield Labs test going on, or at least that is the rumor. Lots of people have been posting their invites over on Reddit, which, by the way, you shouldn't do that, guys, if you have, because it's breaking your NDA, so bad idea. But at least we've now been informed that there is indeed a test going on. And from what people are saying, today is the last day to RSVP, which means essentially like reserve your seat. So go and check your emails, guys. Go check your junk box. See if you've gotten an email from EA Playtesting, because you're going to be kicking yourself if you don't realize until tomorrow and it's too late and you haven't reserved a spot there. Alright, moving on from that, let's talk a little bit about this huge movement debate about sweaty gamers and stuff that's going on over on Reddit. So I believe this all started because there was leaked footage from Battlefield Labs of a half-decent player. I know, you won't believe it, but yes, somebody actually decent at the game shared some gameplay footage from Battlefield Labs. Insane, right, guys? But what this has done has sparked off a lot of controversy around movement in Battlefield 6. How much movement should be in the game, how many movement mechanics should be in the game, should it have sliding, etc. And I think this guy here posted a pretty interesting graphic saying movement and pacing is a spectrum. So at one end of the spectrum here, we've got milsim games, and then we've got Arma 3. A little bit further up, we've got Squad, and then somewhere in the middle of the spectrum, we have arcade games. So games like Battlefield 1, 5, 6, etc. Then we've got Call of Duty, and then all the way at the other end, we have games with a lot of movement. I don't really like the fact that he says Adderall kids here. Like, first of all, Quake, Unreal Tournament, arena shooters like that are awesome games. So there's nothing bad about them. So really, he should have just put like more movement at one end and less movement at the other end. However, I do agree with him that Battlefield has always sat somewhere in the middle of the spectrum in terms of movement. And personally, that's where I would like it to stay. I'm not against movement mechanics as long as they're properly balanced. So things like sliding, I think it does have a place in Battlefield games. It's been in recent Battlefield games. Some people would prefer to see it removed. They don't want to see tactical sprint and stuff like that in there, which isn't currently in Battlefield Labs, so it looks like that might not be coming to the game. But yeah, a lot of people just want to see the games regress to the way they were in the olden days. And, I think they're going to be upset once they actually play them. Recently, I've been going back to Battlefield 1, and whilst that's a fantastic game, and it has the atmosphere and all of that, I feel like I just have no options in most gunfights as an infantry player. I feel like that game is all about positioning, and to be clear, I haven't really played Battlefield 1 before. I pretty much entirely skipped that title, so this is like a learning experience for me, playing that game without any of these movement aids, let's call them. So ADS strafe speed is incredibly slow. There is a slide in the game, but it's practically useless because it's so slow and you go such a short distance with it. There's no tactical sprint, and mantling is also very, very slow in the game. So if you want to mantle over a wall and try and like surprise some enemies, for example, most of the time that will end in your death. And I've noticed one thing moving to Battlefield 1 from Battlefield 2042 and back again, and that's that in Battlefield 1 there are way more people camping and just lying prone on the ground. And that's because in that game, movement is so slow that you get punished for it. It feels extremely stiff and rigid, and I suppose more defensive players who are going to sit back in a building and hold like a window, and my lord, there is a lot of windows I've come to learn in Battlefield 1 maps, like I think it's called Amiens, probably mispronouncing that one there, but yeah, that map is kind of nuts. It kind of encourages that sort of gameplay rather than attacking, running onto your objective, which will often result in your death. Now, I'm not saying I want this to be Quake. I'm not saying I want it to be like Call of Duty types of movement either, or Splitgate or something like that. But I do think the amount of movement that we've had in games like Battlefield 5 was a good sweet spot. I think there were some things in Battlefield 2042 that kind of, I thought at least, didn't belong there. So when you could use McKay to grappling hook along the ground and sort of bunny hop your way across the battlefield, you can even do it without McKay's grappling hook to a certain extent. I'm not really a big fan of that, but I do like having some movement. I think a slide is good, especially when it's got more of a focus on being used defensively. So if you're crossing a road and you want to get in behind that piece of cover before you get gunned down, having a slide is really, really nice. But that being said, it is a fine balance. So we also don't want positioning to become meaningless, right? Because if somebody can just slide around the corner and gun you down, or bunny hop around the corner, or any of these cheesy mechanics that are sort of not really necessarily intended by the developer, but players have figured out how to use them nevertheless, then positioning kind of becomes meaningless, right? So you need positioning to be important, but you also need some movement so that when somebody has that insane position, or they've got that head glitch or whatever, you can actually try to flank them effectively. So that's my take on it. Obviously, I'd love to hear your guys' down below. Honestly, so far what I've seen from the Battlefield Labs leaks, I think it looks in a pretty good spot. The game seems slightly slower than Battlefield 2042. There's no tactical sprint, so the overall movement speed of the game is slower. It's going to take you longer to traverse, but the engagement time, the TTK, it takes longer to kill somebody. So those two things sort of cancel each other out. On the one hand, it's going to take you, for example, longer to cross a road and get into cover, but it's also going to take you longer to die if somebody starts shooting at you. It's also going to reward people who have better aim, because if you can track that enemy for longer, then you stand a better chance of actually killing them. And since you need more bullets to kill somebody, it means that those larger magazines don't really have the same potential to kill as many people on like an insane flank as we see in games like Battlefield 2042. So overall, I like it. I don't think the slide is, unwarranted in that game. I think it's fine. They may need to tweak it and keep an eye on it. And if people do start to abuse it in ways that are unintended, then yeah, perhaps they're going to have to rein it in. But from what I've heard in Battlefield 1, they kind of reined in the slide in that game. As I understand it, it was a lot more powerful, and then they nerfed it. And it sounds like they nerfed it a little bit too much to the point where it's totally useless now. So, it is a fine line, but overall, I think what we've seen in Battlefield Labs looks pretty decent. I think people are overreacting maybe just a little bit too much on that. And we don't necessarily need to take Battlefield games like all the way back to Battlefield 2. Let's not forget that in Battlefield Bad Company 2, you couldn't even strafe in that game. And if you go back and try and play that game, it just isn't playable for me. Like, I'm so used to playing FPS games now and being able to strafe that I just can't play that game without it. It's very, very strange indeed. It's almost like playing GoldenEye on the N64 again. So those are my thoughts on the topic, guys. Like I said before, leave me yours down below. Subscribe for more Battlefield. Follow me over on Twitch as well, by the way, guys. I am streaming there a lot more often these days, playing Battlefield, also some other games. So if that's your jam, feel free to swing by and say hello. But otherwise, thank you guys for watching today. Have a good one, and I'll see you next time.